Mr. Pretorius. Good morning, everybody.
Morning, Chair.
Morning, Chair.
Mr. Pretorius.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Agrizzi, we finished yesterday at paragraph 12.6 of your affidavit, and that is where there's reference to the video exhibit S1.
That is correct, Chair. May I add something? Chair asked me a question.
Yeah. Oh,
yesterday.
yes, there was some homework
Yes.
that was to be done for delivery after lunch, but we didn't continue after lunch. Yes.
That was beyond my control, unfortunately.
Yes, no. I'm happy that you are here, and I'm very happy that you are very determined to make sure that this commission is assisted and that the nation gets to know what you know.
We will, my Chair, we will.
Thank you very much.
Can I respond to you, Chair, with regards to the balances?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
If you turn to the second file, Annex Chair that is referred to is 584, page 584.
That's exhibit S2, or
Correct.
Is that on the bundle other than the one that we were using yesterday?
it's the bundle that was handed to you, Chair, yesterday. It's the second volume of the statement and annexures. We've referred to it as exhibit S2.
Oh, yes, okay, I've got it. Page
Page 584.
584.
Yes.
Thank you.
If I can just give you a bit of background, this is a page.
I've got it, yeah.
This is a page out of the Black Book, one of them that I managed to find. If you look at the first one, it says January to February 2016.
Yes.
And the word says recon. I know my handwriting is very bad. It says recon,
Yes.
transfer, TRF, which stands for transfer,
Yeah.
back to petty cash,
Yes.
J fund sale, and an amount of 107,000 Rand off order. Okay. What that basically means is that from the order that came in, 107,000 Rand was used out of a separate petty cash, which is the normal company petty cash. But there was a shortage, so they used 107,000 Rand from the delivery to replace the petty cash so that it would balance.
Okay.
Then on the 18th of February 2016, an amount of 3.2 million was received. And then a week later, on the 25th of the 2nd, 2016, an amount of 2.8 million was received. So the balance
Yes.
in the safe was 6 million Rand.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The page next to it just refers to persons that received it. And then if you flip over to page 586,
I'm sorry. The page on page 584,
yes, sir.
the photocopy page that is next to the one that you have dealt with,
Yes,
has got names.
correct.
Are those names names of persons to whom payments were made?
That is correct.
Okay, all right, thank you. And I see that it itself does not have a date. Is it for the 18th February 2016 as reflected in the first page, or it's on there for another date?
That would have occurred after the 25th of February.
Okay, thank you.
I I have another page.
Is that 586?
586.
Yes.
That is a loose page that was in the book, but refers to January 2015. And there you will see
Yes.
delivery to GW, which is the initials of Gavin Watson.
Yes.
Lindsay, just let me see, collect, which meant that Lindsay Watson would have collected it and checked it. AVT stands for Andries van Tonda, which means he would have delivered 5.4 million rand.
Oh, okay. So there might not be an M after 4, but we're talking millions.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. If you look at the bottom, you'll see I've calculated and worked out the balance that was left, because this would always be verified with somebody there. So the balance that was left was 2.185 million rand after there'd been payments out.
Yeah.
Okay. At the bottom of the page next to it, you'll see that a balance was then 2.6 million rand. Unfortunately, there's a page in between that's missing. We don't know where it is. I never had ownership of these black books. They were always in the safe.
Yes, okay.
Okay.
And the handwriting on page 586, Mr. Agrizzi, is that also your handwriting?
That's my record keeping, yes.
Is it your writing that appears on all these pages from that book?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
January 2015, you will see there's a reconciliation there that says received. GLA refers to Greg, Laken, Allen for Gavin. You'll see an amount of 5.4.
I'm sorry, are you still at page 586?
Sorry, I flipped over already to 588. Sorry, my mistake.
Oh. Five 88.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. January 20.
It's actually January 2016, sorry. It looks like a 16 or 15, one of the two. I'm sorry, I didn't want to make changes to it.
Yes, okay, okay.
I write with a fountain pen, Your Honor, so sometimes I slip.
Yeah, you were telling me something about that page.
Yes.
Just start afresh.
It says on the top there, recon, chair, and I would do that because the book would be left in Gavin Watson's safe.
Does recon stand for reconciliation? Okay. Received GLA.
GLA stands for Greg, Laken, Allen for Gavin.
Perhaps you should spell that name for the record, please.
GREGLACON hyphen ALLIN.
I-N or E-N?
And how do you pronounce it?
Greg, Laken, Allen.
Okay.
Sorry, not a hyphen, it's a dash between the Laken and the Allen.
And the Allen, how's that spelled?
ALLIN, if I recall correctly.
Okay.
Okay. Then you'll see an amount of 5.4 million rand. And the person that reconned it with me is Andries van Tonda.
So that's AVT, not AUT.
No, AVT.
AVT standing for Andries van Tonda.
Correct.
Okay. Yes.
And the split there is not actually an expense. What I did was I used the word expense, but it was the safes, number 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
Okay. May I move on, Chair?
So the total at the bottom of that page is the balance, or what is it?
5,487,
Uh-huh.
comma 500.
Is that the balance?
Yes, because there would have been some money left in the safe.
Oh, okay.
All right, so the balance there would be what was currently at that stage in the safe.
Okay.
Chair, if I could ask you to go to page 600.
Okay.
If I may just interject, all these documents emanate from the Black Book,
Correct.
or the Black Books.
Correct.
Yes. 600.
600, if you look at it, it says, and I can't read the date properly because I seem to have lost my glasses here, but it says February recon. It says received.
Is that the one on the right-hand side that you are looking at?
The one on the right-hand side.
Yes.
The one on the left denotes the names.
Oh, okay.
All right. The one on the right-hand side says received 6 million.
Yes.
Then there was a reimbursement back to petty cash for 107.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was some payments, just the totals, not the actual individuals.
Yeah.
Then there was an amount of 3,425, 500 left in Gavin's safe, which was checked by Lindsay Watson. We also left a note in the safe that specific time, and it was just a note denoting in each safe how much it was in the safe. So that's why I just said note left.
Before you go on to another page, in the photographed sheet on the right-hand side,
Yes.
on page 600 of Exhibit S2, there is, next to the number 4, an amount of 110,000 Rand, and in brackets after that PG. Do you know from your own knowledge what that denotes?
Yes, that was Patrick Gillingham. Chair.
Yeah, okay.
Again, page 600 is your handwriting, is it?
Yes, it is, Chair.
On some of the pages of this exhibit, these little pages from the Black Book, you find 2 pages, as is the case in page 600, at page 600.
Yes.
What's the relationship between those 2 pages when there are 2 of them? Is the one page for the names of people to whom money was paid and the other a reconciliation, or what is the relationship, or is it just coincidental?
I think, Chair, it's just coincidental because if I recall correctly, these specific pages were separate from the book.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we may continue.
Okay. If you go, Chair, to page 602.
Yes.
That just denotes that on the top that there would have been a previous page that said it was checked by 3 people, Andries van Tonda, Angelo Agrizzi, and JVZ stands for Jacques van Zyl. Okay.
There is the name that there's a word that looks like Ishmael there.
That's right.
Yeah, who was that?
What that basically means is the list that you see in front of you and the names that you see in front of you there,
Yes.
that money was collected by the director, Ishmael.
Oh, he was one of the directors.
Yes.
And what's his surname, or is that his surname?
He changed his surname. His surname was Mwaba,
Yeah.
and it changed to Dikane.
Oh, okay.
Would you spell both, please, if you can?
Mwaba, I'm going on memory, MNCWABE. Dikane was DIKANE.
Yeah, I think it's in your statement. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so the page that we are looking at page 602, the page from the book, Black Book,
Yes.
depicts names of persons to whom certain amounts reflected on the page were given to Ishmael to distribute to them.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And and what appears at the bottom, is it the total when you add up all of those amounts, or is it the balance in the safe?
No, that's the total. I actually didn't check that, Chair. I must apologize.
Sorry?
I didn't check that, but I presume
Yes.
it will be the total, because
Okay,
that's how I
okay.
normally would do it.
Okay, all right. Well, if it was stacks, you would just like that, but this is not, it's not in stacks.
Yes, unfortunately.
Okay, all right. Okay, you may proceed.
I think, Chair, that is in response to your question that you asked me, and then I would like to clarify a point that seems to have come across.
Yes, before you do that, let's just make sure we complete the point to which your evidence in regard to these pages relates. One of the questions was about how many people were, so to speak, on the payroll of Bosasa, but now the payroll I'm talking about is not the one for employees, in terms of the monthly bribes. That was one of the questions. Does this answer that, these pages, or not really?
These pages answer about, I'd say, 50%.
About 50%?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't count. I don't know whether you counted, whether 50% would be more or less what number? Did you have a chance to count? 20?
No, about
Much more.
40, yeah.
About 40?
Yeah.
So your estimate, would your estimate be that at least at some stage while you were with Bosasa, people who were paid cash monthly may well have been around 80 or thereabouts?
I would say close to that, Chair. I would
Close, yeah.
I would have to think about that. I didn't really think
but
about it.
it's an estimate, but you say 80 might just be around the correct figure.
That received illegal cash payments, yes.
Yeah, that received cash payments.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yes. Okay, that was the one question, so that clarifies it. The other question, I didn't write them down. The other question, do you remember? I'm trying to see which ones we have been able to answer.
The other question, I know there was a question regarding vaults, and there was a question,
no.
perhaps
The one-
Advocate Pretorius would just clarify.
I think I think Mr. Pretorius did
I've
write
got
down
it.
at least my questions. Mr. Pretorius, are you able to remind me what I had asked?
Just looking for the note, Chair, if you bear with me.
Oh, I think the other question may well have been, oh no, it was the one about how much the
Was the
cash
minimum
was.
balance.
Yeah, that was answered. What I didn't ask, which I can ask while Mr. Pretorius is looking, I did ask. I also asked about other gifts.
And the irregularity, Chair.
Yeah, the irregular gifts that may have been, I think you clarified that they may not have been given monthly like cash, but
Yes.
there was a certain amount of regularity.
Yes.
Is that right?
Correct.
But what I don't know whether I asked was whether you would have an idea about what those would be in terms of monetary value per month, per 2 months, per year, apart from the monthly cash payments, is that, I don't know if I asked that, is that something that's easy to say, or it would need to check, you would need to check?
Chair, what I can do is draw up a schedule.
Yeah.
If Advocate Pretorius requests
Yes.
that, I can do that.
Okay, let's...
Chair, you mentioned the regularity or otherwise of what we refer to as other benefits,
Yes.
other than cash.
Yes.
You also at a stage queried the total amount of bribes approximately per day or per period.
For a period,
of
yeah.
time.
Yeah, I think that's what...
And then you also asked how regularly the safe was filled at some stage.
oh, yes.
And then how many people were paid at a time. But we've
Yes.
dealt more or less with those questions.
Yeah. You in terms of how regularly Mr. Watson's safe was filled, you did indicate.
Weekly.
You said weekly, sometimes even quicker than that. And in terms of the number of people, or in terms of cash payments monthly, we now have an idea. And in terms of other benefits, I think that might still have to be checked, but that can come later. It's not
Yes,
urgent.
can I say what the legal team's intention is in this regard?
Yes.
At the evidence, the end of the evidence, we will do a sweep of all outstanding issues that might have been
okay.
raised by you, or that might
That's-
then be logically outstanding,
Yes.
and we will deal with them.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, thank you, Mr. Agrizzi. Mr. Pretorius, you may continue.
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, Chair, could I raise the point?
Oh, you wanted to
I don't want to
raise,
interject
yes,
you.
please.
But I think what is important is that I clear up any misconceptions that might have happened
Yes,
yesterday.
please do so.
I will. When I refer to disposal of people, it is a
Yes.
term in terms of getting rid of people, where I experienced many a time where senior people would have to be dismissed, fired, but they would go through, there would be a rigorous process of discrediting the person in social media, in the media, and also with everybody else possible. So that's what I meant by disposal, because literally you're taking a person's life, their family, and you're throwing them in the dustbin. That's basically what I was trying to clarify.
Yes.
And I've seen it over the last years, so many.
So before they would be disposed of, as you say,
Yes.
would there be a certain period during which they would be discredited, or
Totally.
the discrediting would happen after?
Discrediting would happen during and after.
Okay. Well, that may tie in maybe with a term that you used also when you were talking about that. I can't remember whether you used the term terminate people,
Yes.
but I remember you used a term, and I in response, I asked you to explain, because I said, under apartheid, sometimes the term taken out was used.
Yes.
And it had a certain meaning. In terms of the terminology that you used, you didn't mean that people would be killed, or did you?
No.
Yes,
I didn't
okay.
mean that people would be
You
killed.
just, you just meant that they would be got rid of from the company.
Yes.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Thank you, it's clarified.
Thank you, Chair. In the next few paragraphs, Mr. Agrizzi, you deal with matters relating to the handling of cash and who handled it and in what manner. May I refer you to paragraph 12.7 of your statement? What was the case in regard to what may be termed high-profile officials? We'll get to detail later.
The case was Gavin Watson would deal with them himself, Chair.
And particularly over the months of December and January each year, or December each year,
That is correct, Chair.
what would happen then?
That is correct. Occasionally, if I say occasionally, he would visit the people and do the special payments himself. At one stage, right in, I can't remember the exact date, I went with Mr. Watson to do Christmas, what I called the Christmas run. And, you know, at that stage already, I said to him, please, can you keep detailed records? Because, you know, anything can happen to you, and what then? And he basically made it clear that he just ignored me. And when I asked him again, he basically said, I don't use paper. I've been trained to use my memory. I don't write anything down. I haven't signed anything, and I haven't got a secretary. That's basically what was said.
Right. And then in paragraph 12.8, you give general evidence as to the method used if someone came to you asking for a favor or any benefit. What was that?
Well, I'd realized after a while that people would come to me and says, Gavin said, please can you organize this for me? Can you hire me a car? Can you fly me down to PE? Can you book my kid in a hotel? And eventually I would not do it. And I would actually phone up Mr. Watson and say to Mr. Watson, this person is asking for A, B, C, and D. What do you want me to do?
Would he then approve or not approve?
He would tell me and confirm the instruction to me.
Right. So that was your way of making sure that whatever you did was with his approval?
I wouldn't do anything without his approval or his instruction.
Yes, thank you.
From what you knew, and during the period that you were responsible for cash transactions and the keeping of records, in the sense that it was up to you to reconcile, I mean responsible in that sense, are you able to say whether Gavin Watson would have known himself of everything in relation to payments, and in particular whether he knew of all the payments that left Bosasa for the purpose of bribery?
Chair, the answer is actually very simple, that I would not do anything without his instruction, without him knowing about it. Otherwise, I could be held responsible. And quite simply, I wouldn't take risk, you know, not doing something without him knowing about it. It's too dangerous to try something like that.
I'm dealing, Mr. Agrizzi, with paragraph 12.9. Do you believe, from your own knowledge, that Gavin Watson knew the extent of payments going out that weren't recorded?
He knew the extent. If you look at my response, I don't think he knew the extent, because there was one specific incident where Chair, I don't like an untidy office or an untidy desk, and there was papers lying around, and I grabbed a refuse bag that was lying there to put the rubbish in, and in the bag I saw 70,000 rand, and I showed him and I said, you know, you need to be more careful. So I don't think he actually even knew the extent of what he was paying out.
Is it possible?
Sorry,
that,
the amount. Sorry.
Is it possible that he really didn't care much in terms of what was going out, obviously to a certain extent? In other words, maybe if my money or my company's money was being paid, I would want to know that all the money that is being paid is money that I intend to be paid, and that it goes to the people that I intend it to go to. But I don't know, maybe if there is just too much money lying around, too much money, you might end up, you know, I mean, you told us the other day 6 million rand per month was just a drop in the ocean.
Yes.
So maybe that might have been the reason why he might not have been as careful as somebody else might have been in terms of making sure what money goes out, the full extent. Is that something that you think is possible?
Most definitely. He told me on numerous occasions that my job is to make money. His job is to make sure that he spends the money. To him, it meant nothing.
The amount that you just mentioned that you found in the refuse bag, what was that amount again, please?
70,000 rand.
Earlier on, I thought you said 7, but I think you are saying 70,000 rand.
70,000
and I see
rand.
it is 70,000 rand in this statement, yeah.
Right, and then
I'm sorry. Was he shocked that there was such a lot of money in a refuse bag?
I showed him. He was,
Yeah.
oh, well, the attitude was, oh, well, luckily he found it.
It wasn't a big deal.
No, I was hoping he was going to give it to me, Chair.
Yeah. Okay, all right.
All right, in the remainder of paragraph 12.9, Mr. Agrizzi, you deal with the drop safe. You've already given that evidence.
Correct.
We don't need to repeat it. And then in paragraph 12.10, you deal with the issue very briefly of shortages under your watch. What was the position?
There was never any shortages. We made sure, I always made sure I'd never do it alone. I always made sure there was somebody with me, either Jacques van Zyl or Andries van Tonder or Lindsay Watson with me, so that my integrity wouldn't be questioned in that situation.
Is that when money was being physically handled?
Yes.
Then in paragraph 12.11, you deal with the topic that you've been questioned about from the chair in relation to favors other than cash payments. Would you describe those briefly for the chair, please?
Well, Chair, there were numerous other favors, and there were vehicle repairs being done for people. There were school fees settled. There was travel arrangements that were done. And it was merely what happened there was we paid it through the books, and that was eventually picked up by the SIU investigation. And thereafter, the preferred mechanism was using cash or using it through an arm's length company that would be registered as Mr. Watson instructed.
Vehicle repairs, how were they done? An outside garage or an internal facility to Bosasa?
Well, there's two stances. The one is an outside garage where they would then invoice Corano or Bosasa and the garage. And the other one was we had an on-site workshop at one of our complexes which we had set up to deal with the high volume of vehicles that needed minor services. So people would take their cars there and they would sort it out.
Your reference to Corano, is that the same entity that you referred to yesterday?
Correct.
Okay. When you talked about accounting for these expenses, please provide the chair with a little detail. How were they accounted for? Under what head or in what category of expense?
Well, the category that we put under is either the operational expense or alternatively marketing expenses, and they would normally be allocated to a company where the person who received the benefit gave benefit to. So if Mr. X was from Bosasa Security and he was helping Bosasa Security, the expense would normally go through that division.
Are you personally aware of vehicles being serviced for any particular individual?
Yes,
that you recall?
I am aware of some vehicles that have been serviced for specific individuals, Chair.
In paragraph 12.12, you mention a name. Who is that person? What is his connection with the matters you're dealing with?
This gentleman was the security, I think, liaison, I could call him, at AXA. His name is Reuben Pillai.
And you say his vehicle was serviced?
Amongst others, yes.
And who authorized the servicing of that particular vehicle?
Well, it would be authorized by Joe Gumedi, because Joe Gumedi at that stage was in charge of security.
All right, just look at paragraph 12.12, please.
the third sentence, you say in your affidavit that you would authorize the servicing,
I would,
which is correct.
both are correct, because he would come to me with it, and I would then finalize it. And so remember, Chair, if I can explain, I signed off everything. That was the rule. I
Yeah.
had to sign off everything.
Yeah, yeah.
So you say,
I guess
Sorry.
that must have been in part because Mr. Gavin Watson didn't sign anything.
Correct.
Yeah,
So to answer the question correctly would be to say that the request to do it was through Joe Gumedi, and the authorization was through me.
now, the person mentioned there, who was he employed by, or what was the connection between, what was the relationship between him and Bosasa?
That was in the early days when Bosasa received the AXA contract for the guarding of the multi-story car level at Owatambo.
Yes. So was he somebody from the company that awarded that contract?
He was involved with it, yes, as far as I know.
Yeah, okay. But he was not an employee of Bosasa.
No, he was employed by AXA. He was employed by AXA.
Oh, yeah, okay. Thank you. So, did you view the servicing of his motor vehicle as part of Bosasa's bribery to people that would make it easy for Bosasa to get contracts?
Yes, I did.
That's how you viewed it?
I did.
Yes.
I'd become blunt to it.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
thus far, Mr. Agrizzi, and in general terms, you've testified as to payments made to various people and the methods used to effect those payments. You've also mentioned very briefly receipt of
I'm
cash.
sorry, Mr. Pretorius, to interrupt you. The naming at paragraph 12.12 has not been mentioned. So when you read the transcript, you would have to look for this bundle to see what was that name. Is
The
there
name-
a particular reason that it's not being mentioned?
It may have been mentioned softly, Chair,
Oh,
but
okay.
it was mentioned.
Okay.
Is that correct? You've mentioned the name of the person there.
Yep, the name was Mr. Reuben Pillai.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay.
Just to go back a step, Mr. Agrizzi, you've given evidence thus far, amongst other things, of the general methods used to make cash payments and what happened in the Bosasa offices in that respect. You will give further detailed evidence in that regard in due course.
Most definitely.
You've also mentioned receipt of cash.
Yes.
In other words, in order to make these payments, Bosasa had to have in its possession large amounts of cash to the extent that you've already testified.
Correct.
The next section of your affidavit then deals with how Bosasa obtained cash.
That is correct, Chair.
In 13.1, you deal with one such method of obtaining cash or concealing cash transactions. What was that method?
One such method, Chair, was to issue a cash check and to cash the check at the bank. Then a fictitious invoice would be created to justify the cash transaction. And the fictitious invoice would be created in the name of a company that was nearing liquidation or in liquidation, or a company that was about to place in liquidation,
Why was that done?
because there would be very little queries or recourse for the check.
And would the company that is chosen, would the company know about the fictitious invoice or not really? Or sometimes they would know, sometimes they would not know.
I don't think they would. I didn't do the invoicing, so I found out about the practice, but I think they wouldn't have known.
Okay, okay.
All right. Then you go further in paragraph 13.2 of your affidavit, and you relate how, in relation to cashing checks at the bank and the issuing of fake invoices, these were done in the name of other entities. Please tell the Chair what happened.
What they would do is they would raise fake invoices, which would be in a small startup name, and there was no VAT numbers, because the last thing is to mess around with revenue services. And companies that had delivered perhaps a small product or a service, they would just regenerate those invoices. And, you know, they were not used more than once or twice. But I recall a company called Cutler Events. Which
Spell
was,
that, please. Is that KGWETLO?
Correct.
Yes.
Cutler Events was a company that belonged to a Mr. and Mrs. Brian Gwebu, who previously used to actually work at the Bosasa Group, and where they had a hiring of plates and tents and that kind of company. Then the accountant would draw up the invoices and book it to Cutler Events, which was, I got a bit annoyed because I thought, you know, it's one of our employees that passed away. It wasn't a very good thing to do. But for this reason, they used it, was because they could avert any potential queries from the South African Revenue Services or from the auditors.
You spoke in a previous answer now, Mr. Agrizzi, of small or startup names. Did you mean small or startup companies?
Yes, companies, Chair.
And you say in paragraph 13.2, with no VAT numbers. What is the significance of that?
Well, the significance of that is these are small companies that have no VAT exposure. They don't have to do returns as yet. And my understanding is that they wouldn't be queried. When I asked the question, I was told it's because they wouldn't be queried.
And you refer to the company called Cutler Events and Mr. and Mrs. Gwebu. Did they know, again to your knowledge, of the use of their name on false invoices?
No.
Who drew up the invoices?
Gentlemen that drew up, there were various people that drew up the invoices. The gentleman I know drew up the invoice was Carlos Bonifacio.
The system of issuing false invoices in order to conceal the generation of cash through the issuing of cash checks, did it replace a previous system?
Well, basically, it replaced a system whereby we would write out cash checks and draw it as casual wages. And we would have a dummy. I didn't do it, I wasn't involved with that aspect of it, but I know what was being done. They would draw up a dummy list of employees and then issue cash checks accordingly.
We'll deal in a moment, as I recall, with the reason for the termination of that practice. But before we go on, Mr. Agrizzi, Carlos Bonifacio, what position did he hold in Bosasa?
He was the chief accountant and responsible for the finances of the group.
And his full name's Carlos Bonifacio?
Correct.
You refer to him again in paragraph 13.3. Would you just tell the Commission the circumstances that gave rise to the events that you referred to in that paragraph?
Commission Chair, let me give you a bit of background to it.
Yes.
At one stage, Carlos Bonifacio, they'd known that I was going to whistleblow and declare everything for quite some time, as did quite a lot of other people as well. And at one stage he was involved. He would come through to the meeting and write up a statement and would email statements and that type of thing. And he was going to cooperate. As a matter of fact, his wife even phoned me and said, thank you for helping us get this clear. He was in the process of preparing an affidavit for this purpose of the commission and also for law enforcement.
This is after you had left Bosasa?
Yes, yes. And he was prepared to come clean and draw up everything. He forwarded me portions of the draft affidavit. But then what happened was he got cold feet and he confessed everything to Gavin Watson, who sat with him for 3-4 hours apparently. And he then rattled off exactly who was going to whistleblow to Gavin Watson. And that's what basically happened.
The documents.
Thank you.
The documents that were forwarded to by Mr. Bonifacio, have you kept these documents?
Yes, I have.
Have you made them available to the Commission investigators?
I have.
Chair, to the extent that they may become relevant or may in fact be relevant, we will deal with that issue.
Thank you.
In paragraph 13.4, you perhaps repeat what you said earlier about the use of companies in order to filter payments. Just tell the Chair what you are saying in paragraph 13.4 regarding the use of companies at an arm's length, as you say here.
Chair, there would be companies that we eventually would have to start up on Gavin Watson's instruction, and we would register it and then do exactly the same, but with the fictitious companies, close them down, liquidate them after the taxes had been paid and that. So I think it is a kind of addition to 13.3.
You describe another way of...
I'm sorry, Mr. Pretorius.
Sorry, Chair.
So the creation of these companies was really solely to facilitate fictitious invoices, basically the corruption.
Non-VAT, yeah.
Yes.
Correct.
Thank you. And there were a number of them that were created and then liquidated after some time during your time at Bosasa?
There were. The files were at Bosasa. I can't recall exactly how many. I didn't keep track of that at all.
But quite a number.
I think I can remember 5.
Okay. And are you able to tell whether they would have more or less the same lifespan before they got liquidated, or it really differed from one to another?
I must be honest, I can't recall.
Okay, all right. But would there be maybe one or two where, in regard to which you are able to say, well, maybe after it was created, it was around for a year or 2 or anything like that?
If the Chair allows, I will go and check on my laptop and see if I can get some information from them, and I will bring them.
Okay, no, it's not so important, but it's information that might be helpful just to complete the picture. Yeah, okay, all right, thank you.
Will do.
Just for the record in my notes,
yes.
Chair.
If you don't come back to me with it, it won't be a big deal. But if you are able to come back with it,
and
it's
the
fine.
Information
or
being?
The information being what would be the lifespan on average of those companies that were created for basically corruption purposes that would be liquidated later. Thank you.
I have to ensure homework is properly done.
Thank you.
You then deal in paragraph 13.5, Mr. Agrizzi, with another manner in which cash could be generated for the purposes of bribery, as you've described in your evidence in the past 2 days. Would you relate to the Chair how this scheme worked, and please take it step by step.
Yes, Chair. There was another way that the cash was withdrawn, and that was via a contractor called Sekale Construction, which is owned by a gentleman by the name of Rian Hoeksma. Hoeksma had a very good relationship with a wholesale liquor outlet in Randfontein that does a lot of cash transactions, and obviously they had a lot of cash and it cost money to deposit cash, so they'd rather give it away, or not give it away, but give it to someone else and receive a EFT for it. It's also much safer in today's times. So what would happen is that
EFT,
electronic fund transfer, so through the bank. Does that clarify that?
yes. I'm sorry I interrupted you and your train of thought, but take your time.
No problem. So what would happen is that this company called Jumbo Liquor would hand the funds over to Mr. Hoeksma, and at the same time also do an invoice to Bosasa for alcohol. All right? This alcohol was not purchased. There was no alcohol whatsoever, not even communion wine, Chair. So it was never purchased. It was just cash.
And was never delivered.
It was never delivered. It was just specified as an invoice, and who would check that the invoice would be delivered? Nobody would check. So the cash was transferred, and the amount of the invoice was paid and given in cash instead of the communion wine or the alcohol or the Coca-Cola or whatever. So
Let's
that's
take it
basically
step
what
by step because the scheme can be quite confusing unless one follows it step by step.
Yes. So if I can explain it to you, I would put an order for, I'm just saying I would. I never did the orders.
Yeah.
They would put in an order for 4 million rand. Over a weekend, Jumbo Liquor wholesalers would do 4 million rand.
And then, I'm sorry, do I understand correctly? Are you saying that the order, I mean, you have told me that there would be no liquor delivered. The order would be for liquor to the amount of 4 million rand.
Correct.
Okay. Yes, okay, all right, continue. So I just wanted to understand that part because I would imagine it would catch anybody's eye, just the mere fact that it's liquor and it's for so much. But you will continue, you may continue.
Obviously the amount was split over time, so maybe using 4 million rand is not the right, maybe let's use 600
it's not.
It wasn't a 4 million amount.
Oh,
I'm just giving the amount.
Oh,
but it would be say 1 million or 1.2 million at a time. But
yes.
over a week or over 2 weeks, it would come to 4 or 5 million.
Oh, that's
from the
still
same
quite,
supplier.
That's still quite high, I
Yes.
would imagine, yeah.
But as long as the invoices were in sequence and it didn't highlight any concerns from anybody. So what would happen is the order would be sent, they would collect up the cash, and when it was ready to be delivered, there would be a phone call and payment of an EFT would transfer. Now, there were interesting
phone call from who to whom?
Well, it would be, I can't recall if it was Jacques van Sale and Rian Hoeksma, or if it was Andries van Tonde and Rian Hoeksma. But they would normally, the standard practice would be they phone a week during the week and say, Gavin Watson needs X amount of cash, and they would then arrange it.
Yes.
So what would happen then is that it would be delivered to the offices, and that would be the payment, in lieu of the not delivering stock, they would deliver the cash for it. And because of this, the agent, who in this case was Rian Hoeksma, would get between 5% and 7.5% of the fee.
So just to make sure I understand, you are saying that it would happen that various orders for liquor, as it would appear, were made by Bosasa to Jumbo Liquor wholesalers, and that the amount would could be 1 million, could for any particular order could be another amount, but over a week, it could easily be about 4 million. Is that right? And more or less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe a week or 2 weeks.
Maybe a week or 2 weeks, yes. And then you say that one, no liquor would be delivered.
No.
Two, cash would then be made available at a certain stage that would correspond with the invoice.
Correct.
And that cash would be paid to somebody from a jumbo liquor wholesalers or to Mr. Watson. Who would it be given to in terms of the procedure?
So what would happen is the cash would be delivered and it would follow exactly the same process of going into the first vault and then being transferred to Mr. Watson's vault.
Or the cash never physically left Bosasa to go to a jumbo liquor wholesalers.
Now, what would happen is they would transfer via electronic
via
to pay for the invoice.
Oh, okay, yes.
And then the invoice would be delivered in cash to Bosasa.
Oh, okay, all right.
Clarify.
Yeah, and then you say there would be a person from jumbo liquor wholesalers who would then get, in effect, some commission.
Yes.
Yeah, and the commission would be about 5% or 7.5% according to your statement, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to clarify.
Yes.
The commission went to Rian Hoeksma because he was the agent for jumbo liquor.
Yes.
So he would get the 5 to 7%.
Okay. No, thank you.
Let's just summarize
Yes.
public consumption in another way, because this scheme is difficult to follow. Bosasa orders liquor for R1 million by way of example from the wholesaler.
Correct.
The wholesaler then invoices Bosasa
That is correct.
in the sum of R1 million, and by EFT transfer, R1 million in actual money is paid to the liquor wholesaler.
That is correct, Chair.
That's one box of transactions.
That's correct.
Now, the liquor wholesaler has not delivered any liquor pursuant to that order, but
right.
it's now sitting with R1 million by EFT transfer.
That's correct, Chair.
It has cash, and so it provides this cash to the agent.
That's correct.
The agent takes his cut and delivers the balance to Bosasa.
That is correct, Chair.
And so what one has on the one hand is a series of orders, invoices, and EFT payments for the records, and on the other hand, one has cash movement on the other.
That is correct, Chair.
Thank you.
I just need to add, Chair, there's one missing link.
Yes.
The link is the invoice is put through as operational expenses and expensed.
Yes.
So it becomes tax deductible.
Oh, okay.
In paragraph 13.6, Mr. Agrizzi, you talk about cash drawings for cash checks and how these are reflected on the bank statements. What was the position initially, or when these schemes first started being implemented?
The problem when the initial cash checks were drawn up is that these were reflected on the bank statements as cash drawings, because a cash check is cash drawings, so it looked very suspicious. A concern was raised by the auditors, and the explanation was given to the auditors that the payments that were being made were too small, and these were start-up companies that Bosasa had to accommodate. So they would make cash payments to them.
You say that the payments were being made were too small. You mean they were being made to TO, small and startup companies?
Correct.
The scheme the scheme means that in the case of jumbo liquor wholesalers, in terms of their books, they would be shown to have received certain amounts of money for liquor
Yes.
that they sold when in fact there was no liquor that they sold.
Yes.
Thank you.
Then in paragraph 13.7 at the bottom of page 26, you refer to another method utilized by Bosasa to generate cash. Again, step by step, if you will, would you tell the chair what happened here?
This is actually a very sad story, Chair. Because at one stage, the employees, I'm not going to read off my statement, I know it so well. At one stage, the employees were having major problems because they were losing family members through death, natural death. And we then decided that we needed to help the employees, and we bought what was called a Metropolitan Death Benefit Fund, which basically covers employees in the event of death with, I think it was 20,000 Rand or 10,000 Rand. If a main member died, if a child died, it was maybe a little bit less, and if a mother or a father died, it would be a little bit less. So it was a scheme that I implemented to try and assist. But then what happened was, the death certificates are always delayed. So we would then issue an advance to the person instead of waiting for Metropolitan to actually issue a check and verify that the person has got a legitimate death certificate and all that. So what happened was then a second request was made. So if a family member died, they would get two checks. So they would get the Metropolitan check, and then they would get a cash check. But they never actually received the cash check. The cash check was used to draw cash out the bank for bribes and corruption. So the second check that was written out was not ever given to the family, but it was used to pay bribes and to raise cash to be able to do that. So if anybody was questioned, then it would be clearly said to them that no, the company contributed because it had all the supporting documentation. So we decided to contribute a double check to the person, and that's how we passed off.
So, but those two checks remained checks from Bosasa as opposed from Metropolitan.
Correct.
So when the Metropolitan one came, it would just refund Bosasa, is that right?
Correct.
Yes, but the point of what was happening is that two checks were made, and the books would reflect that they all went to the employee or his family, but actually only one went there. Is that right?
You've hit the nail on the head, Chair.
Thank you. The other one was used for briberies.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Were records of these transactions kept? Look, the records of the transactions are all kept because these are normal, they appear as normal transactions. And at one stage, the estimated monthly total was about 300,000 Rand. I mean, we were having a lot of deaths. We had people in security and ill people. So it was quite high at 1 month, I remember specifically.
What was Bosasa's total number of employees at any one stage, or maybe towards the end of your time there, more or less?
Look, I'm not too sure of what it is now, but at one stage, at the peak, especially with all the security contracts with the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, with the Post Office and that, it was up to about 6,000 people.
Oh, okay.
I do not have a clue of what it is at now.
Yeah, okay.
But it's considerably lower, I believe.
Okay.
Thank you. Just to summarize once again, Mr. Agrizzi, in relation to the death benefits issue, there were two really separate transactions. One, when a family member died, the company Bosasa would give an advance of the amount covered by the death benefit and later recover this money from Metropolitan.
That is correct, Chair.
The other transaction was to say to the, well, not to say to the employee, but was to record in your books a cash donation to the family arising out of the circumstances of the death of the family member, but not to give that cash when that cash was drawn to the family member or to the family, but rather keep it for the purpose of generating cash for bribes.
That is correct, Chair.
By the time you left Bosasa, was that still happening, or had that terminated?
I cannot recall, Chair. I didn't want to even know about this. I didn't even want to sign off these death requests of these death benefits at one stage. So I think people averted from coming to me. So the last time I recall signing them was in June 2016. So I cannot say.
So it was still, it was still happening at that time?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, all right. Thank you.
I don't want you to deal at this stage with 13.8 of your statement, Mr. Agrizzi. We'll deal with it later when and if appropriate. But can we go then to paragraph 13.9? Before we do so, this death benefit scheme, and particularly the second transaction where a donation would be made for which ostensibly but not in reality cash was withdrawn from your accounts and given, or Bosasa accounts and given to the employee's family. Did the employees know about this?
No, they did not.
Probably not. Then let's go to paragraph 13.9. You say in that paragraph that you're able to estimate the amount of cash that was drawn or generated over a period of time, and you refer to a monthly period here. Would you relate these calculations and their implications for income tax to the Chair, please? And you deal with that in paragraph 13.9 and 13.10 of your affidavit.
Chair, I'd like to clarify, I'm not an accountant.
Yes.
Okay, and
You'll just do the best you can.
I can just give information.
Yes.
And this is where it gets concerning, is that when you look at this done by a simple calculation, it is quite frightening.
Sorry, Chair, it is, I'm told, past 11:15, perhaps, before we venture into this accounting sphere, be it on an abbreviated basis. Perhaps the short adjournment should be taken.
Okay. We'll take the short adjournment, tea break, and we'll resume at 11:30. Then we adjourn.